Welcome to the Outhouse Lounge, where we relax and talk about shaving cream, something like that. I know I have to change the tagline because YouTube won't let me say the word, but I like it. I have a very special episode today. I've always wanted to do a very special episode of the Outhouse Lounge. In 2016, Book of Love wrote a rather keen song, and I think that's what the kids are saying today, right? Keen? Or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
spank? I think they're saying spank, right? I don't know what the kids are saying today, but either way, these kids in their MySpace and their Ataris, I don't know what they're changing their words to these days. The lead line in a song that Book of Love recorded back in 2016 was called All Girl Band. The second verse was the Shangri-Las came to town and gave us great big kisses. The track was several of the great all-female bands from the Slits to the X-Ray Specs. Looking at music history, it took some real innovators and some big leaps by female musicians earlier to, let's just say, jump into these male-dominated hard rock, hard punk, and new wave worlds. So I thought I'd bring in some of my favorite all-lady, all-female band rockers with me as well. And here they are. I have with me Nancy Quatro Glass. Nancy Quatro Glass, of course, who led Cradle among other projects and managed bands and rockers throughout her career. Nikki Corvette, the Nikki of Nikki and the Corvettes. As you can see, Detroit's well represented in this program. Also in the lounge, Donna Destri, solo artist and punk pioneer, who also sang with Blondie and many other artists, and really did one of my favorite renditions of I Got You Babe with Paul Zone. We'll get into that. And Caron Maso Murray, who, with her sister Michelle, led the Little Girls. And by the way, she has a killer on elk impersonation under her belt. I just love the best one ever. So welcome to the program, ladies.
Hi. Hi, thanks for having us.
Welcome to the lounge. It's nice seeing a lot of you. It's sort of a reunion of sorts because I've had many of you on past programs that I've done. But I wanted to talk about all-female bands because a lot of women today are out there. They're in public. There's a lot of great artists who are doing the rock and roll, doing the new wave, doing the pop thing right now. But it wasn't as easy as it might look now back for all of you, especially because you've done this at a time where the industry was male dominated.
It still is.
I guess you're right. I guess I can put it that way.
It still is.
Yeah, in large part, it still is.
Yeah. It is. No, it is. To me, there's no doubt that it's still male dominated.
Well, Nancy, let's start with you because from the early days of hard rock, you doing that kind of music with Cradle was absolutely virtually unheard of when it came to women in music.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
So who got you and your sister's influence in doing the hard stuff?
Well, they were in the Pleasure Seekers. I'm the youngest of the family. So they were in the Pleasure Seekers doing the normal of what women should do, wearing mini skirts, blah, 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 blah. And I was 12 when they started their band. And then I entered at 15 years old. And that's when music was really getting much heavier, really changing. You had Cream, all the bands that came out, Led Zeppelin, all those bands. Basically, when I got in the band is when they decided to change the whole direction. They wanted to stop wearing all the same outfits and the mini skirts and blah, 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 and just change the direction of our music or of their music. So we all really liked the heavier sound. And started getting on the pop festivals and the bigger shows that really focused on that kind of sound. Was not, what's funny to me is for us, we never looked at it like we're females playing heavy music. We didn't even look at the fact that we're females. For us, it wasn't even in our thought process until people told us. Oh, you're a girl. Oh, you guys play good for girls. You'd hear those kind of and you're like, huh? I didn't know there was a distinction or a that because you're a girl, you might, you actually play good. So that's when it became, because my dad didn't, or mom didn't raise us like that either. We didn't have those restrictions in our heads, but it was there. There's no doubt about it. I had no problem ignoring it. But you became very aware that I started noticing like Cream Magazine, Rolling Stone. Hey, there's never females on there, ever. Not as musicians. You know, they do Janis Joplin. Well, she's a singer. So you could be accepted as a singer. But they're definitely, and I'm sorry, I think it's still the same. Not as bad, but I do think it's still the same. When I see some of these death metal female bands that come out, you know, I like to pop in and see all the different genres.
I enjoy some of them. Definitely.
Yeah, and there are. This is going to sound really like, oh, she's not a feminist, but it doesn't look natural to me when I see the death metal girls. It's like, to me, it looks like they're trying to be guys.
Interesting.
It is interesting because I'm not that way. I don't even think that way. But yet I'll look and I'll go, okay. But females, I think there's a few females that did actually kick down the door for musicians. And I'm not just saying this because she's my sister, but she is one of them. Susie Quatro is one of them.
Absolutely.
That did kick down the door for a girl being a musician.
She opened up a lot for women because if you think about it, without her out front, and again, she was very famous in Britain, of course, brought back to the U.S. again, you know, back and forth here and there. But you had the Runaways after that. Then you had a lot more female-led bands and all-female bands coming on after that. But really, the Pleasure Seekers, Cradle, Fanny, Bertha, those early bands were there when you weren't getting the publicity or attention that you probably could have gotten 8 to 10 years later if you started. Am I far off here?
No.
There's a whole movement now about get Fanny into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Those girls were great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were. I think they're still doing some work now too.
My sister Patty was with Fanny, so she's doing a whole bunch of podcasts, and yeah, she just did a short little tour with them, two or three little tours with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're actively. They've got a documentary out and blah blah blah. Yeah, my sister Patty played guitar for them. After Cradle broke up, she went out to California, got into Fanny. Not right away, but she got into Fanny. I went out there to try to do a solo career. That's when I decided I'm done. LA did it for me. It really did. I'm so not an LA girl. I'm just not. So I just couldn't wait to get back to Detroit. I didn't like the way the business worked out there. I didn't like the casting couch. I was hit up. I was guaranteed a career if I did this or that. And I just thought, you know what? That's so not me.
Was that prevalent? I know the Harvey Weinstein thing and the whole big deal about the casting couch in Hollywood. How about for you ladies? Were there snakes in the business? I know there were snakes in the business.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right.
I don't want to name names, but yeah.
I think it's easier to say who wasn't a snake.
There you go. All right, that's a shorter list, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a dirty world. I mean, that's when Susie was hitting it so big, and I went out there. Like I said, I had Bill Cosby's manager was my manager. He was put me in the studio, blah blah blah, for a solo career. And Susie had her hit. She had a couple hits by then. And I was promised going to take me to London if I'd sleep with the guy. That happened more than once. And I was just like, wow, I didn't experience that being in Cradle because I wasn't in Hollywood. It's a different world.
Nikki, when you started out in Detroit, again, it was still like the man's world. It was more of the punk power pop world. But again, women weren't doing what you were doing by then. And how did the men treat you? In some of their early days of
non-existent. You know, a lot. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of times we would get thrown off shows when they found out there were girls in the band. Guys just didn't want to play with us.
No.
And
Well, at least not instrumentally.
That's terrible.
and like I didn't care. I was gonna do what I wanted to do, and if it didn't work out that way, I'd find my own way to do it. But yeah, second class citizen, definitely. What's funny is when I moved back to Detroit, all the same guys would come up to me and say, "Oh, if you ever need a drummer or bass player," I'm like, "If I ever do, I remember everything you said about me, and it won't be you." And all of them who had never done anything, suddenly I was cool. But I got the chance to say, "Yeah, it's okay. I don't need you. Didn't then, don't now."
Actually, I'll interject real quickly. We had, when Cradle was, before Susie went to England and left the band, we actually started truly getting some respect in the male world. We had Jerry Nolan, of the drummer of the New York Dolls, join our band. We actually put a man in the band because our female drummer had quit and we had shows and we just had to have someone. But he joined our band and he really loved it.
Well, he loved being around women.
Yeah, he loved that too.
Well, at least he played with the band. I'm sure a lot of guys were like you said, weren't up for that.
No.
There were a lot of pioneer women even before both of you and before Donna and before Caron. I'm sure there were influences you all had. Who were your favorites growing up, and who were your favorites when you were getting into the music business, who may have influenced you a bit more than maybe you thought?
I always wanted to be the Ramones meets the Ronettes or the Shangri-Las.
Yeah,
Nice combo.
the Ronettes were great, and the Shangri-Las, and we just lost Mary Weiss.
Yeah, that's terrible news.
Lovely lady.
Shangri-Las were rebels. They were cool.
They were.
I like
The archetypal tough girls,
They were cool.
Beehives are so cool.
I loved them.
Yeah.
Mine weren't anyone female. Honestly, my influences were Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. I just liked the hardcore. I liked Janis Joplin. I loved her. But I don't think I don't have really any female influences. There weren't a lot of them out there.
Oh, there were so many out there.
Well, I don't mean there weren't a lot that we heard about. And we play tours with other female groups, but I can't say any of them ever influenced me. Oh, here we go. Elizabeth's here.
Well, I guess that makes a lot of sense. And joining us right now is a fellow podcaster, a friend of mine here. And she's a voice actress, she's an actress, and of course, co-host of The Hard Truth with Tony Schaeffer, another show I work with. And she's also done a lot of lounges. Elizabeth Breckenkamp, welcome to the program. And we're talking about great influential female, all-female bands. And by the way, I have 4 of them with me right here. So I think we're going to have a good time in the Outhouse Lounge. But we were talking about some of our favorites, and Caron, I haven't heard of some of your influences.
Well, I loved Joan Baez and Judy Collins, but my favorite bands were the Beatles and the Stones, and later, of course, Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. I was totally into that. Humble Pie,
amazing.
But a model for my band, I think, was this all-girl group, or a girl-fronted group with 2 sisters in front called the Heaters.
Oh, the Heaters. That's right. With Maggie Cannell. That's right.
Yeah. And they used to play in the Valley a lot. I can't remember the name of the club, but I used to go see them and I loved them. That was right before I started my band.
Now, were there men who were, again, we had a lot of snakes. We talked about the snakes. I want to see if there were any men in the business who actually were looking forward to seeing more females, more all-women bands or female-fronted bands, or you ladies in particular, succeed. Did you get a lot of help from some of the male artists or male managers in the business, or any help?
We did
with Toby Mamis, who worked with Blondie, and
he's with Alice Cooper.
And now he's with Alice Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Bob
back in the day,
Jacobs
he
was
was our
always
manager.
I had Tony DeFries for a while. I was with Main Man. He was a great help. He was a great help. In fact, he lent me a lot of money that I never paid back.
Well,
Quite honestly, when he decided it was no more for him in the music business, and now he's a physicist. It's so weird, but he did lend me some money when he decided to dissolve Main Man, which was very nice. So
We had Bud Prager, who was manager of Mountain and Cooper, and he till this day he's a powerhouse. So we had him. We had interest from him. Jeff Beck. We had quite a few, but it was a matter of putting your money where your mouth is too.
yeah.
well, one thing I noticed when I asked about your influences is you had a lot of male band influences.
I do.
You ladies are actually influences to younger bands. We're going to get into that in the near future on this program. But I wanted to ask, it's funny because you didn't have, especially in your era, Nancy, right around there, you didn't have a lot of even female guitarists or drummers who were prominent.
None.
Maybe there was Honey Lantry in 1967, who I always found great. And people might have looked at her as a novelty, but I got to listen to some of her drum solos and drum work on YouTube, and it's worth listening to how great she was. But women never got a chance to actually pick up their own guitars. You had your outliers, you had your Roseanne Cashes, you had your great country guitarists, but it's almost like women weren't allowed to do certain things back then.
It's true.
Am I far off there too?
No, you're not. You're not at all. I don't think you are. I mean, now you have Orianthi and, the who's the girl that plays with Alice Cooper right now because she's phenomenal.
Oh, she is.
What's her name? Here we go with the names.
I know. Now we have to try to remember things.
Yeah, she's amazing. Blonde starts with an N, doesn't it? Anyway, you do have now. I have to say, there's more female musicians now to me. Michael Jackson was a big part in bringing more female musicians out, like because when he did Orianthi, that was like a big deal. And she's a great guitarist. I mean, there's a lot of great bass players, great girl guitarists. I mean, but that's just it. We're actually discussing trying to think of names. That shows the male domination. I'm telling you, because
I can think of Carlos Santana. His wife is a phenomenal drummer. I can't think of her name. We were just watching a concert with Carlos last week, and his wife is amazing. She's an amazing drummer, but I can't think of her name either. My husband knows her name, and I can't think of it. She's awesome. Oh my gosh, she's awesome. And she's smoking hot too. So, that helps. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you get on YouTube, you'd be shocked at some of the female musicians that are not known that put their own little videos up. And I've watched so many, and I'm just like, oh, they rival any guy for sure. They are that good. They're doing like cover songs, like they'll do Pantera, they'll do something from Dimebag Darrell, but it's amazing to me. And it's like you said, kind of a novelty that a girl, look at how she's playing. That language is still there.
It's funny. It's now, again, this is an all female artist, an all girl band special. So I don't want to fall into that trap that you just said that mindset where, oh, she plays well for a girl or they play great for a girl. But the idea was if you're a young woman, let's say 12, 13 years old and looking to pick up an instrument in 1972, bands like yours, Nikki, Nancy, didn't get publicity, and groups like yours, Nikki, Caron, and Donna, you guys were still kind of getting your footing a little bit later on in the decade. The Runaways came out, and finally, young women were allowed to were able to see a fully promoted mainstream all-female band, and that was game changing.
I was influenced by that. I liked the Runaway.
Sorry.
And I was excited about the Runaways, but I wasn't as into their music at the time, but I loved their image.
I like their image too. I love Joan Jett's image.
Oh, I love Joan.
And of course there was, you know, the whole thing that she's a carbon copy of my sister.
Oh, is that what they said?
Well, she admits it. At first she was,
Right.
yeah. That she haircut, wearing leather. It was just
Oh,
this
why wouldn't you? Right.
version of that. Yeah. But I loved her look. I thought she looked great. I liked her presence on stage. So the Runaways I liked. They're one of the few girl bands I actually really liked.
Nikki, I've heard bands.
I just thought her name. I'm sorry, Chris. Nita Strauss is the guitarist with Alice Cooper. Sorry.
There we go. Now see. This is good. We come up. We learn a new thing every day. Nikki, something that was really amazed me. I've done a lot of interviews with people. I and really enjoyed talking to Naoka Yamano from Shonen Knife, and she is among a few people who I've talked to, female musicians, who have said Nikki Corvette is one of my big influences. And you're absolutely one of the women who a lot of the girl groups of the 80s and 90s really followed and looked to you for that kind of or that kind of I guess that kind of oh gosh, I'm not sure if I can use the word properly, but look to you as a real influence to what they did and what they plan to do in the future.
Yeah, and when it first started happening, I just thought, you know, when you meet somebody or you see a band and you're like, oh, I love the show, you were great, and you just say it so to be nice, and I just thought that everybody was saying that, and then I started hearing their songs and, you know, being name checked by the Donnas and, you know, them sending me covers of my songs, and I went, oh, people do know who I am, and because I was influenced by women, I like the fact that I can influence women and just keep it going and building on it. And, you know, I'm doing a show June 8th in New York, a festival called Oh Bondage Up Yours. And it's all female or female fronted bands. And it's not the first all female fronted festival I've done. And I like the fact that it happens. It shouldn't have to. It shouldn't have to be a thing where it's a special thing because it's all female.
Right.
It should just be.
Yeah, right. That's my point, that we're still having this conversation.
Right.
And much as I like the title, "Oh Bondage Up Yours," it's definitely the reference to the song by the X-Rays X. With us now is another good friend of mine, a friend of the show, is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaeffer. He's a real spy, former special ops, and of course, intelligence officer, a host of The Hard Truth, who I work with as well. But if I told you anything else, you'd have to kill all of us, and I don't want any of you guys.
That's right. No, I've actually I've gone undercover as Shuri Curry before. No, it's a joke. I've never done that, but I'm sure Shuri would like me to do that.
You don't have the legs for it. I'm sorry.
I don't have the legs for it. No, I don't.
I don't know about that. I mean, no. Can you wield the chainsaw?
Well, no, I'm thank you all for having me just for a moment. I got to go back to work in a second. This is kind of a break for me. Look, I'm just blown away by Chris allowing me to be with you guys on occasion. You know, Shuri and I are close friends now, and I'm just fascinated by the artistry you all bring to the table. I mean, it's just, we're just saying, Nikki, it's like, hey, you're just rock and rollers, and you should be recognized as rock and rollers, no matter who you are, or sex or anything. So it's just amazing what you all do. So kudos to everything you've done. And I see Nancy there. Hey, Nancy.
Hi, Tony.
So Nancy texts me on occasion. So you know, we're all looking to try to figure out how things are going these days. But it's just.
I think we have a little reception issue there, but we'll work on that, Tony.
Mine's breaking up.
Yeah. Well, look, here it is, Nikki. Apparently, when the Nikki and the Corvettes started, and that's again another mark in history, because from there on, the presence of all female bands and female artists rocking and doing punk music that just skyrocketed right from that point forward. You had your Go-Go's, you had your Josie Cottons of the world, you had your a little before that was X-Ray Specs, but you also had Shonen Knife, who actually started in Japan as around that era, the early '80s, as a Ramones cover band, and they got into their own. Strawberry Switchblade, the duo. You had it just skyrocketed from there. It was it it's nice to know that younger women nowadays can look and say, "Hey, we see you ladies on stage. We can see you all now." But you didn't have that, and it must have been what was the word? It must have been tough to find some other females in the industry that you could work with and maybe kind of network with at the time. How was that?
We didn't have any. We really didn't have anyone that we honestly. We were, and I think part of it's because we were hard rock. So it was such a departure for what girls do. And I do think that's part of the problem is that we didn't know any hard rock bands, female ones. We just didn't know any. We played with all dudes. And the girls that we did play with, they were much softer than us.
So you had to create the standard.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't give a shit. Oops, sorry.
Uh-oh. I think we could say it once, right?
We just, that's the thing is we didn't look at any of that. It was not in our mindset until people would come up and tell us that after, oh, you were good for girls. You know, then it was like, we were for girls. It just was such a strange concept to us to be told we were good for girls. So I just did not have a lot of female band influences. And then I was happy when I started seeing, the Runways and when they started coming out, there were becoming more in the forefront. By then I was well out of the performing part of the business. I was managing by then. And I used to actually want to look for a girl band that I thought would measure up to the standard of how the male world looked at female musicians. And then you notice someone like a Jeff Beck, these guy bands started putting like female guitarists in their bands. And I thought, oh, there's a little bit of movement here that a female can get respect as a musician.
Well, there had to be first too, because you'd have to think a lot of women who wanted to play guitar 10 years ago or 10 years before that are saying, I don't know, maybe I won't make it in the business if I play guitar because I don't see any female guitarists out there.
That's right.
I used to hang out with I used to date guys in bands, and they would, and I would learn how to play guitar from them. That was my thing, is that, and I would go and dance at their shows, and then I learned a lot about playing guitar, mostly from this one guy I was dating. And then I just really got into guitar, and that was my thing.
Guitar was my thing too. Ted Nugent was my foray into guitar. And he was from Detroit, and we all played together. So
that and High Speed Chases, if I remember.
Oh my God. The best night of my life.
It's interesting that Madonna started out as a guitar player. She was in a rock band and she played guitar. Not a lot of people know that.
I didn't know.
She used to rehearse in a studio, in Chelsea, and we would see her, playing guitar. She started out as a rock and roller, and then that all changed when, in the early 80s when she started doing her kind of disco thing, or whatever you want to call what she was doing at the time, but dance music or whatever. But she started out playing guitar, and she really worked hard, I have to say. In the beginning, she was playing gigs at Max's Kansas City and really dedicated to playing guitar.
Now some of the most respected guitarists are female. And looking back, they still have Poison Ivy. You have Kate St. John. There are plenty of female guitarists that have the notoriety, but they didn't have the publicity back in the 60s, 70s, and part of the early 80s.
They still don't. I just looked at who was it, Blabbermouth, or someone came out with a list of
Good name.
the top 200 guitarists, and I looked through every name. There wasn't one female on there, not one. And there were male guitarists on there that I'd actually never heard of, and I just went, "Wow, not one."
I always thought Lita Ford was a great guitar player.
Yeah.
There you go.
But they don't make the list.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because she.
It is. It's the way I purposely look.
I want to throw some questions I want to throw one to each of you, all 6 of you here. We talked about great female bands of the past. I want to ask what some of the bands that you hear nowadays or may have heard in the 90s, 2000s, and maybe 2010s, some of the great girl bands, whether it be famous or whether it be a garage band, that you guys kind of like, you ladies kind of like, and of course, gentlemen.
I liked Veruca Salt.
I like the name too. That's another great name. Oh, female bands have great names. I want to go through a few of those.
Very creative. Yeah, they do. I agree. Good names.
I'm a Shags guy myself, to be honest with you. Love the Shags.
I like there's a lot of good all female fronted bands now. Amel and the Sniffers. I love her. She is like gonna take over everything. I play with a Japanese female guitarist whose band, the Let's Go, is the greatest punk band in Tokyo right now. There's so many. I just saw a girl, Kate Clover. There are so many punk, bubblegum punk, power pop, garage bands now that are female or female fronted, and I just like the fact that a lot of them they're not a female band, they're not a female fronted band, they're just a punk band, and they're making people look at them that way.
That's true. Hey, Japan has a lot of great all-girl bands too, by the way. We always have.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8. Shonen Knife. I don't know. There's a lot of new ones too. There's one called Octobe.
Yep.
Beaver. I don't know how you say their name.
But there are a lot, especially female punk bands, and they love the American female acts too. I know you were very popular in Japan. I remember you talking to me during one Revenge of the 80s radio show where you were saying you were doing a concert down there, and the the fans knew the words to your Nikki and the Corvettes songs. They were singing along with you.
They know their version of them, but yeah, they do. They know the words to all the songs.
See, that's cool.
And the 5, 6, 7, 8, the first time I met Yoshiko, the singer, guitar player, she told me that they started out as Nikki and the Corvettes cover band doing my songs, which they're not at all like Nikki and the Corvettes, but I just thought that was really cool.
They do a killer cover of Woohoo, by the way. That's a great song from what's 57, 58. I love the song Woohoo. I had to throw that in there because I just like it. Donna, Caron, any of the bands of today or anybody you've been listening to?
I love that. My good friend. Oh, what was that?
Oh no.
My dear friend Cynthia Ross, who was with the B Girls, is reunited with them, and they're doing gigs again. I love that they're playing out.
I did say I enjoyed the Shags, which are they're not a newer band. They're from 1967, 68. They're the sisters that were just thrown together by their father, and the music is way out there. It's what I call avant-garde, but I like it.
Somebody's vocalizing. It's apropos.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I can't give you one name.
Okay. Well, that's fair
And
enough.
I think that's partly because I don't even focus on them. I don't look for them or who are they now. And now that you said that, I'm actually going to I'm going to see what's out there now. The last female band that I liked a lot was the Runaways. That tells you how long ago that was.
All great female bands.
And I appreciated those and the Bangles. They weren't my type at all, too poppy for me, but I definitely appreciated that they had great songs.
They did have great songs.
They had great songs, yeah.
Another, the Pandoras were actually very good too. The Pandoras were.
Oh, right, the Pandoras.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's another. Yeah.
One band I found was really avant-garde in the mid 1980s, and and the name stuck out to me back when I was a teen growing up, but I didn't hear much of them until later on. I just remember the name, and I started listening to them. They're called the Holy Sisters of the Gaga Dada, and they were really way out there. They're kind of more experimental. They were something different, and I like that too. And a lot of and being it used to be a lot of only male bands could break the mold, but then after a while, female bands and female artists were breaking different molds, even their own molds at this point. More equal opportunity here.
Yeah. I still find it amazing that we're in 2024 and we're having this discussion about females. I mean, it's truly amazing to me that it didn't grow any further. And I only say that because when I look at any of the rock magazines, like I said, or the lists, there's just never a female on them. And I'm just like, wow, how can that be? There's plenty of great musicians out there that are female.
Nikki, who was that band? They came on tour with us. Or they were and they were all girls. And when we went with Travis, what was the name of that? I can't think of it.
The West Coast tour?
Yeah.
No, it was us and you and the Makeout Party.
The Makeout Party, but there was this girl band with us as well. And I feel so bad I can't remember their name. They covered my song Bandana. I was just looking on iTunes to see
it was the Riff Randalls.
The Riff Randalls, yes. They're a lot of fun.
I like the fact, like Donna was talking about Cynthia. My band used to play with the B-Girls a lot in the late 70s, early 80s. We played Toronto, we played New York, we played Detroit. And I truly appreciate the fact that Cynthia is still doing stuff. And, you know, we get up and sing with each other. I've gotten up at B-Girls reunions. She's gotten up and sang with me. And the fact that, you know, bands that started a long time ago, we're still doing stuff and still building each other up and supporting each other. I think that's important.
It's really important.
Because the guys aren't going to do it.
Really important.
All right.
The younger guys now are so much more accepting and supportive. To them, it isn't a girls in a band thing. It's just a band thing.
Yeah.
So the younger guys get it.
Well, next thing you know, you're going to want your own basketball league. That's what they're thinking, right? No, I'm just kidding. But it's more their world now. Like we were saying before, it wasn't part of the world of the 60s and 70s that much. Now it's like, hey, well, female bands. I'm sure a lot of the male bands were influenced by female artists at this point, if you think about it. But I have to say, a lot of the female bands have more inventive names. I was looking over some of the great or the lesser known but cool punk bands. I love these names. Androids of Mew from the late 70s, early 80s. The Aquanettas, another great name and taken from the great Hairspray. Love the B-Girls, of course. Betty Blowtorch, another great name. I mean, if anything, women are more creative with their names sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
And Malaria, the German band Malaria. You got to like that.
Yep.
Rasputina.
Good names.
I love these names. So here's a question for each of you. We're going to be winding down the show pretty soon. I'm very happy to have you all on, Nikki, Nancy, Caron, and Donna. What would you say to a young aspiring female artist who says, I want to get into something hard. I want to be a rocker. I want to be a punker.
I would say don't let anybody stop you. Don't listen to what anybody says. Believe in yourself. Get out there and do it.
I probably would say the same. Just go with your heart and do it. If that's your passion, just go for it, Absolutely.
I can't swear, so I would say, F everybody, pursue it with all the passion you can muster.
Yeah, I would say you have to have a lot of passion.
Passion, for
You
sure.
have to really want it, and then there's all kinds of other things that go along. You've got to have good friends and good luck and all kinds of stuff, right?
Definitely good luck.
Yeah.
Caron, I didn't ask this. I have to ask this, okay? How did you and your sister keep so much energy on stage? You know, the jumping around with the arms and everything. I would have been tired after song number 3. That's when I was in shape.
We just did. We still, both of us still have a lot of energy. So, I don't know. We had a good time. It was always
Because
fun.
you're doing,
and, being up on stage, there's an energy that comes
That's
from
right.
the audience. So
That's what I was just going to say. It's I've gone out there with a broken leg, and you forget you have a broken leg.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're not there anymore. You're in a different stratosphere.
You see, I could see you guys getting that high with playing the guitar, singing. I know, Nikki, you're high energy when you sing. Donna, you too. Caron, all the dancing. Me, on the other hand, I get that same sensation walking up a flight of stairs. That's why I'm in radio.
Fun, but it's not as much fun. Music takes you just to a whole nother planet. It just does. Even if, as a listener, if I'm just listening to something that really gets to me, I literally leave my body.
Absolutely.
I'm just not here anymore. That's the beauty of music.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being with me in the Outhouse Lounge here and talking about the great female artists of the past, present, and of course, hopefully we'll see more in the future. We want to see some great stuff. And of course, you check out YouTube. Check out, I guess I can't invite everybody to see my record collection, but I have a lot of good ones, if you will. So again, check out stuff from Nikki. Check out Cradle. Check out Nancy. Obviously, Caron. The little girls have a new collection album out. Check that out. Donna, you've been putting out singles right and left over the last many years. So all this great stuff from you ladies. Thank you for the great music all these years. I want to thank you for your conversations in the past, and I really hope you all can come on the lounge in the future and just have some fun. Maybe talk about other things with us.
Now that we know how to log in.
You're all in the lounge family. There we go.
Thanks, and great meeting everybody.
Nice meeting all of you. Yeah,
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and of course,
good to see you, Nikki.
You too.
And for all of you out there, thank you for being with us. Stay tuned for our next episode, and we're going to have a little fun here. We're going to have a fake band competition, and we're also going to be talking about one of the great TV series of all time, The Prisoner. And yes, Tony and I will be dressed. It'll be fun.